lose like 5 pounds. Here.
And now the news is good with Matthew Martin.
I'm Matthew Martin, and the news is good. Tonight, Adam's apple. Adam ate the apple, then lived faithfully for 900 years. That's it. I almost don't even want to elaborate about that, but Adam and Eve sinned. There's no debate. They were the first ones to do so. Their transgression set the pattern for the world and all the sin that followed for generations after. And it's true that every person is responsible for their own actions. In a grander, more philosophical way, blame for the state of the world is always going to roll backward to that fateful day in the garden when man and woman yielded to temptation. Odds are, if you asked anybody to answer the question, what did Adam do or what did Eve do? The answer is going to come back, they ate the apple. I know it probably wasn't an apple, but let's just roll with it. Or they ate the forbidden fruit, or just they sinned. And while that's true, it's also a commentary on the way that people have a bad habit of defining others around their most significant moments, especially their worst significant moment. Yes, Adam and Eve sinned, but then they lived some 900 more years in faithful service to God. That has to count for something, right? I mean, how would you like to live even 90 years and when you die, have your worst mistake, your one worst mistake, be the headline of your obituary? People err. People are flawed. People give in to their worst impulses. It happens. You know what else happens? People repent. People change. People grow and improve and end up better than they were on their worst day. Not all the time, but often enough that it should be remembered whenever we look back on those who came and went before us. Adam and Eve ate the apple, and then they lived faithfully for 900 years. Don't forget that. Thank you, Matthew. We now go live to our special correspondent out on the field. Thank you, Matthew. Today's Bible reading comes from Mark chapter 9, beginning in verse 7. There was a certain cloud that overshadowed them, and a voice came out of the cloud saying, "This is my beloved Son, hear ye him." This text happens right in the middle, or I guess near the end of the Transfiguration account. Jesus, this person that the disciples have seen with their own eyes, looking perfectly ordinary, standing about the same average height as they were, being about the same average skin color as they had, speaking the same average language as they did. But now all of a sudden, they see him transformed, transfigured, changed into something more radiant, more glorified, more magnified, something more befitting of his divine status. And there appearing next to him is Moses and Elijah. And Peter, overcome by the moment and prone to saying things ridiculous anyway, says, "Let's build 3 houses of worship, one for Moses, one for Jesus, one for Elijah." And that prompts the response from God in heaven, who says, "This, Jesus, is my beloved Son. Hear ye him." The implication being, you don't need to hear Moses or Elijah. Not that their words are not necessary, not that their readings are not important, not that their deeds should not be well known, but it is Jesus who has sole authority now. It is Jesus who gives you the law you follow. It is Jesus who speaks for God. So the law is done away, the prophets are no more, but there still remains and shall ever be Jesus. And in fact, after saying those words, the cloud disappears and all that remains is just Jesus. Moses and Elijah no longer there. And he approaches them again and reminds them that he is soon to go to the cross to die for the sins of humanity, a thing which only he could do. It is Tuesday, April 28th, and I have just a whole lot of stuff going on, y'all. My schedule is so jam-packed. My calendar, which is always full, is overflowing. Like I have to keep shrinking the font size to fit everything in on whatever I'm doing on that particular day. I just have too much going on. And that can be a good thing, because you don't want to have an idle mind. It can also be a bad thing. So to go back to that phrase, an idle mind is the devil's workshop, I think is how the phrase goes. Very old, very common phrase. I think the meaning of it is pretty clear. If you're not doing anything, you're not focusing on anything, you're opening yourself up to temptations for God, for the devil rather, to take advantage of your boredom, to take advantage of your emptiness, and to fill it in with sinful temptations to get you busy doing bad things. Okay, all good, all true, all right. I believe all that. An overly busy mind, an overly stimulated mind, a mind that is too restless and frustrated with stuff to do, is also the devil's playground. It is where the devil is extremely active, especially in this modern world, because he has got people running ragged left and right, going here, doing that, seeing this, being there. And something's got to give, something's got to be cut. And what tends to happen is people tend to say, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do that. So I guess we're just not going to go to worship this Sunday night. Or we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do that. So I guess we're just not going to go to Bible class on Wednesday night. And you could, but you have already gotten your mindset into, we have got to do this and we have got to do that. We have to do this and we have to do that. So I guess we're not going to, as if that's the optional thing. Let's make God and assembling and studying His Word the priority. And then whatever is left over, we'll do those things. That is the principle that's been around from the beginning. Give God your tithe, give God your portion, give God your first fruits. Those Old Testament principles still are in effect. They're just seen in different ways and they're expressed in different ways, but the principle is still there, which is you have collected this huge barrel full of crops in your harvest. Congratulations. Give God the top, the very best. And you take what's on the bottom of the barrel. You scrape the bottom of the barrel for yourself, the stuff that is crushed and is stuck down there and it's not as fresh and as sweet tasting as what's on the top. You give that to God. My prayer for you today is that you give God what's on top, that you give God the cream of the crop, that you give God the very best, that you give God the first fruits of your life. And that means prioritizing the things that are spiritual. And if you do that, then everything else will fall into place. And that doesn't mean you'll be able to do everything else. It just means if you love God enough to give Him what's first, to give God what's right, then what is left, you will care so less about, that if something has to give and something has to be cut, you'll cut it. We'll do this, so that means we won't do this. We'll do God, we'll have Bible study time, we'll have worship time, we'll have Bible class time, which means we won't have practice here or tryouts here or relaxing in my chair here time. And that'll be okay because I want to study with God's people. I want to worship with God's children. That's my prayer for you, that you will give God what is best, give God what is right, and see what God gives you the time to do with what is left. And you'll have fun with that too. Have a great day. Ooh, yeah. The cream of the crop.